Hi, my name is Greg Krasovsky, and this video is to people who've been involved in sexual harassment, sexual assaults in the military, and also within first responder agencies, law enforcement, EMS, fire rescue. The military field and the first responder fields are already difficult enough because you're putting your life on the line to protect our country, to protect our citizens. And the last thing you need, the last thing you want is a situation where you are now involved in sexual harassment, sexual assault, or related things as a victim or as someone who has been unfairly, unjustly accused. That's just bad news. Now, if you believe or if you know someone within our military, within our first responder agencies, police, fire rescue, EMS, who may have been or who may be currently a victim of sexual harassment, sexual assault, then refer them to my law offices, or feel free to call to my law offices, and we'll see whether we can provide you with expert and legal services. We handle cases nationwide in conjunction with local counsel. I bring to the table expertise, not just as a lawyer, but also as a former first responder. And I have always been grateful, as they say, to the men and women in uniform who help protect the people of our country in the military and first responders. On the other side, if you are a member of those organizations and you're being falsely accused, or your rights are being violated, for instance, you're being passed over for promotions, for assignments, because someone has improperly or falsely accused you of sexual harassment or sexual assault, then reach out to my law offices. In my job, along with the local lawyers that we work with, is to protect you, starting with your agency, working with your agency's legal people, legal in-house or external legal counsel, working with your labor union, working with any advocates, victim advocates, other representatives, working with local prosecutors, including with military prosecutors, to make sure that the truth comes out. Because if you've been accused falsely, the accusations are exaggerated, then you need to make sure your rights are defended. If you've done what people are accusing you of having done, then you need legal protection as well to make sure you get a fair sentence, or you can negotiate a fair and reasonable plea that's going to be fair to you as a perpetrator and also fair to the victim. Because it's all about fairness. I always tell people, it's not what people do, it's what people do afterwards that counts. And people make mistakes. Look, as a former police officer, I'll tell you, I've seen criminals who eventually realized that their criminal wrongdoing was just that, it was wrong. They repented and they stopped being criminals. Sometimes it happens afterwards, right after the crime. Sometimes it happens before or after trial or after conviction or after incarceration. But once it happens, then you have to deal with this person as someone who is on the way of being rehabilitated. Regardless, all of us need and have the right to expect to receive legal protection, right? Legal representation. This is why people who can't afford a lawyer have one appointed by the court. Unfortunately, public defenders are pressed for time and may not be able to gather all the resources that are necessary to properly defend their client, including rounding up all the necessary witnesses, getting all the physical evidence, getting all the experts, bringing in private investigators, things like that. Especially now, in the internet electronic age that we live in, there's a lot of electronic evidence that needs to be properly gathered, preserved, extracted, and used. Both, on hard drives, on local memory, whether it's a phone or a video camera system, or, email traffic, chat traffic, search engine history and results, things like that. So all those things can be used to protect both the rights of the victim and the rights of the falsely accused. So, again, if you're the victim of sexual harassment or sexual assault in the military or in first responder fields, whether it's law enforcement, EMS, or fire rescue, honestly, my heart goes out to you. You didn't deserve it. And I'll be glad, and it'll be an honor for me to protect you, to give you legal advice, to give you expert advice, and to help you get justice, including compensation and including appropriate criminal punishment for the perpetrator. And that's something else you have to consider. People say, well, why does a victim need a lawyer, right? Well, trust me, a lawyer can be very helpful to make sure that you get the proper attention from the people who are supposed to investigate it, within your organization, within law enforcement, within other federal regulatory agencies, right, that have regulatory powers to enforce safety on the job, to enforce the lack of civil right violations, to make sure there are no civil right violations on your job. There are federal agencies, and there are state agencies that handle these cases. So our job as your lawyers, as the victims' representatives, is to make sure all these people are doing their job and that you're not going to be another statistic. And if any deals are being made with the perpetrator, those deals need to be fair to you as a victim. And we also need to get you compensation. Because sometimes, it's not just in the movies, it's in the real world. Often the organization that you work in, for various reasons, whether it's public relations or risk minimization or to make sure their insurance doesn't go up or they don't lose clients or customers, may try to sweep this under the rug. Or if the person that you're accusing is high up, well-connected, connected within the organization, connected politically, powerful family, powerful relatives, whatever, then often, as the victim, you can't get justice. So our job is to help you level that playing field. It's not a playing field, right? This is not a game. We need to make sure that people are treated equally under the law. And things can get complicated with prosecutors as well. Remember, prosecutors are either elected, right? You vote for your county attorney, you can vote for your state attorney. Federal U.S. attorneys are political appointees, right, by the president of whatever party he belongs to, and those people are nominated by the local party machines. And you know what that all involves? Politics always involves money and influence, unfortunately, but that's the nature of the beast. So you want to make sure that if, for some reason, because of all these political considerations, of all these relationships, you don't believe you're getting a fair deal as a victim of sexual assault or sexual harassment, or you're not getting a fair deal as someone who's been falsely accused of these things, you better have some legal protection. Have a lawyer represent you. We can't do magic. We work within the system. But we try to make sure that, the system is not gamed. We try to make sure everything within our power. And if necessary, bring to the attention of the powers that be, including the press, of any applicable improprieties, to make sure that those improprieties stop and do not compromise your rights. Now, if you look at, once you have let's say, a sexual harassment or a sexual assault case, once the investigation has been completed within your organization, whether you're a victim or someone who's been accused, and the results are not satisfactory, because if you're talking about an organizational investigation, what can the results be? If you're a victim, you want the person who harassed you or who assaulted you to suffer all the necessary and all the appropriate employment consequences, whether it's being reassigned, being demoted, suspended, or even fired, right? You also want the organization, if they did not adequately monitor this employee, your perpetrator, or did not take the appropriate action after being warned, either by you or by other victims, of what the person is doing or other personnel, then you want that organization to give you compensation and also to take appropriate measures, right, remedial measures to their policies, to their standards, to make sure that this doesn't happen again, right? That makes sense. And if it doesn't happen, then you need to have lawyers on your side. So if necessary, we can be your legal advocate in front of your organization. Same thing if you're falsely accused. This can have horrible consequences for your career. Just like it can have negative consequences even for the victim, right? Because, you as a victim, you may have proved that you were the victim of sexual harassment or assault, but other people start getting vindictive on you. You're getting overlooked for particular positions, for promotions, for bonuses. You hit some sort of a ceiling, right, like a glass ceiling, because people don't trust you. Oh, this is a troublemaker. All the things you've seen in movies, you also see in real life. Again, getting back to people who've been falsely accused. You don't want problems in your personnel file. You don't want problems with your employer, whether it's regarding your future career, your current position, your bonuses, promotions, assignments, transfers. So you need help. You need assistance with this. Once we get outside of your organization, you can also lose benefits. Remember, if you get fired, you can also lose a pension. You can be subject to lawsuits, and your legal fees may not be picked up by your organization anymore, right? Because often a legal argument is made that if you commit a crime, that crime is always outside the scope of your duties. And if it's outside the scope of your duties, hey, you've done this personally on your own time, on your own dime. So now you have to pick up your legal expenses. And you need legal representation to make sure that doesn't happen unfairly or improperly to you. Once the sexual assault or the sexual harassment claim goes to the outside, for instance, to government regulators or law enforcement agencies, right? Same thing. Both the victim and the accused need representation to make sure they get fair treatment and effective treatment of their case. If you're the victim, what don't you want? You don't want the prosecutors giving some sweetheart deal to the accused, right? Overlooking the damage that's been done to you. If you're the accused, you want to make sure that the prosecutors treat you fairly without political considerations, right? That's important, whether it's reaching a particular plea bargain or basically competently and effectively and aggressively defending your rights in court to prove that you're not guilty, or have those charges voluntarily dismissed by the prosecutor or the judge, or downgraded. These are all possibilities. Also, in regard to civil litigation, we have the same issues. Once civil litigation ensues, and civil litigation can be initiated by the victim to obtain compensation, or to obtain other equitable measures, such as, if you're a victim but you were fired from work, or you were improperly transferred or demoted, or deprived of a bonus, or other compensation package, then your rights need to be restored. And sometimes there's no choice but to litigate civilly, both with the perpetrator and with the organization for whom he works, or both of you may work. For a defendant in a civil litigation, we have the same issues. Remember, in civil litigation, every side needs to show their case, right? And in civil litigation, the threshold to prove your case is a lot lower. It's just the preponderance of the evidence. If 50.1% of the evidence is for one side, that side wins, because the other side only has 49%, right? It's not like beyond a reasonable doubt on criminal proceedings. So, and the third part is, obviously, if these things go to criminal proceedings, whether within the organization, for instance, military criminal proceedings, or within civil criminal proceedings, you need to be represented, both as a victim and obviously as the accused. Often, but a number of times, what happens is an individual who cannot afford an attorney will be appointed a public defender, and friends or relatives may have some money for private legal counsel and may reach out to my office and say, hey, can you please provide assistance to the public defender within this limited amount of hours that we can pay for to you. You're not going to be the lead attorney representing this defendant, especially if he's on the other side of the country. But perhaps you can use your legal experience, legal competence, and expertise in these fields to help out the public defender provide better representation for the accused. And I agree, this is the type of work that I'll do. This is limited representation to assist the primary legal counsel, the primary defender for the accused. So, look, these are difficult issues. Obviously, sexual harassment. Notice how I didn't talk about what constitutes sexual harassment. That's a lecture in itself, right? Where people are harassing you based on your gender or gender identity, gender roles, whatever. Sexual assault is pretty straightforward. Sexual assault is when someone improperly touches you, has improper contact with you, or rapes you, right? And rape doesn't need to involve force. If you've fallen asleep or you're unconscious and you don't have the ability to give consent to be fondled, to be touched, to be penetrated, and someone still does that, then they've raped you, right? So we have different classes of rape and sexual assault and sexual harassment. When it comes to different classes of rape, you can have date rape, acquaintance rape as they call it. Rape not by a stranger who grabs you somewhere in an alley with a point of knife or point of gun, or uses physical force, but or a weapon. But people who you know, people who you trust, who may have taken advantage of the situation, who may have applied psychological pressure to you. And in those cases, then you have a he said, she said situation, or he or she. If this involves members of the same sex, same gender identity. Often physical evidence, the only thing it documents is that people may have been in the same place, people may have had close or intimate contact, but physical evidence may not indicate of whether that contact was voluntary, right? Whether someone gave permission, right? Someone acquiesced, things like that. So then it becomes a matter of credibility, a matter of other evidence that's brought in support of the victim's allegation that the act was unwelcome, permission wasn't given, or in support of the accused who says, listen, this was voluntary. I received actively or tacitly the permission that I thought I needed. And just because, someone has regrets the next day or for some reason is upset at me or wants to be vindictive, that doesn't make me a sex offender, right? And those are important issues. With sexual harassment, same things can be very subjective. Depends on the relationship, depends on the position that people are in, because the same statement can be completely appropriate between two people, particular two people, but if that statement is made to someone else, it can be inappropriate and construed as sexual harassment. So we'll look through everything and we'll use our experience, our competence, and our expertise to let you know what you've got. If you're the victim, our job is to protect your rights, to get justice for you, to get compensation for you. If you're the unjustly, unfairly, or falsely accused, our job is to protect you, right? To vindicate you, to make sure that people understand you did nothing wrong, and if necessary and applicable, to bring the false accuser to justice, which, by the way, rarely happens, right? But the false accusers if people make these false accusations intentionally, they need to be held accountable, including for the damage that they've caused, the legal fees, the damage to someone's career, to someone's reputation, to someone's livelihood. These are all important issues, and they work both ways. The victims deserve proper compensation, and so do when you're a falsely accused person, you're a victim as well, right? You're a victim of a false accusation. So in this complicated field, I think it's even more complicated when it comes to people who are in first responder fields in the military, because of the organizational structure, the organizational mandates, and the situation you find yourselves in. We're often reporting something right away is not an issue. Often reporting on people who in your life depends on them during a deployment or during a mission. That's not an option. Or often you cannot make someone stop right away because you're busy with other things, right? Or you're more concerned about the people you're there to help, the people you're there to protect, or about completing the mission. All these factors are at play. But if you encounter them, that's all right. You've got someone you can reach out to. Let us know what happened to you, and we'll try to help you out as much as possible. Thank you, and we look forward to helping you.